Hello, we're here in the green room with Senator Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania to talk a little bit about the debt ceiling. Senator, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So my first question is just what are the major misconceptions about this debate?
Well, I think the biggest one, and the one that I'm trying to correct, is the misperception being propagated by some in the administration that if we don't immediately raise the debt ceiling upon reaching it, that constitutes a default on our debt. And this is simply factually not even close to true. The fact of the matter is we have reached our debt ceiling many times in the past, and we have not defaulted on our debt. And if we were to reach our debt ceiling, we bring in a lot of revenue from taxes that can be used to service our debt. Now, I'm not suggesting that we can go indefinitely without raising our debt ceiling, but I am suggesting that we should have an honest debate about what this means and what kind of reforms we should insist on in return for raising the debt ceiling.
Part of that misconception, perhaps, is also just that this is an issue we really need to act on immediately because we're set to hit the debt ceiling in March. At the very latest, the final moment of reckoning will be sometime in July. Why should Congress really take its time on the issue?
Well, I'd be happy to reach an agreement tomorrow. We don't need to delay this, but we've got an administration that is saying we want you to vote to raise the debt ceiling and continue business as usual. No reforms, no cuts in spending. We have a president that just threatened to veto the continuing resolution that the House has been working on because he thinks it cuts spending too much. He's introduced a budget that does not get spending under control, that keeps our debt rising, that is a very grave threat to our economy. So clearly this administration is not willing to do anything about spending, and yet they want another credit card. And I just don't think, I think actually that's extremely irresponsible. And so as soon as we can resolve this, I think we should be willing to consider an increase in the debt ceiling, but not until we get spending under control.
So you have legislation to make it the Treasury's first priority to pay off the interest. How would that help the problem?
What that does is it just guarantees and it codifies what the Treasury Secretary would do anyway. In other words, if we are not able to raise the debt ceiling, if we reach an impasse, which has happened in the past, so it could happen, if we reach that impasse and the Treasury cannot go out and borrow more money, and they have to make do with the tax revenue that they get, then I'm saying let's make sure we don't default on our debt. No Treasury Secretary would, but as long as they keep insisting that that's a possibility, then I think we need the legislation that would prohibit that. There's more than enough tax revenue to prevent a payment default on our debt, so let's make sure we take that specter off the table.
And finally, what can we do to get our debt under control?
Well, I would suggest a few big reforms. First of all, immediate cuts. And what the House Republicans have done on the continuing resolution is very, very encouraging. That process is not over yet, but the insistence on the part of a lot of freshmen and conservative members to go back and cut more, very good news. That's a very good start. But the other thing that I think we need are reforms in a broken process. This town is just addicted to too much spending. They do it every year. It's automatic. I'd like to see a balanced budget amendment that would put a straitjacket on federal spending. If we can't get that, I would certainly be open to looking at statutory spending caps so that there's a legal limit, and any time the government exceeds that limit, there would be automatic cuts. So these are the kinds of reforms that would allow us to get spending under control, and what we've seen in recent years is without these reforms, spending's out of control.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you talking to us.
Thanks for having me.